Welcome back to another episode of Marketing Girly by Sky Society. Today I'm chatting with Caddy Davies, the founder and director of Caddy Collabs. Welcome, Caddy.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so excited to chat with you. Caddy has an incredible work history within fashion marketing. She started her career as a PR assistant at Asos and most recently was a senior global collaborations manager at Nasty Gal before starting her own agency, Caddy Collabs. So excited to dive into your career journey. But before we do all of that, can you tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, of course. Well, it's quite a good time to be on here because I've just launched my agency. We're like 4 months in, so it's very, very fresh.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I took the leap and yeah, glad to be here. But as I'm sure you can imagine, it's a crazy time.
Yes.
But yeah, so I've done about 10 years in the industry across lots of different brands, across PR, outreach, collaborations, like influencer collaborations, celeb collaborations, kind of overseeing that whole process, working with social, working with every team, the buying, the e-commerce, just making sure that everything's rounded and has that focus around outreach, PR, and the way the business wants to go, essentially. Yeah, my most recent role, like you said, was at Nasty Girls. That was collaborations manager across the UK and the US. So really, really exciting role that I had. And yeah, since then I've taken the leap and started my own agency.
Amazing. So I'm super interested in your career journey because as you mentioned, it sounds very focused on collaborations, which I feel like are just such an exciting like niche within marketing.
Mhm.
So now within your agency, have you taken the experience that you've gotten working for these brands like in collaborations? And then is that what you do now for other brands as you help them with their collaborations?
Yes, so that's part of it. It's actually really versatile what we're doing right now, which
Mhm.
is amazing because I thought that I would really home in on that collaborations piece, which is part of it. But I'm kind of also pulling back on all the skills I've learned in the last 10 years and kind of actioning them with brands now. So that's like across brand consultancy, the brand vision, the PR, like traditional PR and digital PR, also like influencer strategy, right up to like working on bigger piece collaborations. So it's kind of that whole creative marketing piece,
Okay.
um, which we're sort of working across in completely different ways with each client.
Okay, I'm really excited to dive into what you're doing there because I think for a lot of marketers, I think our dream, for a lot of the girls is to like one day
Yeah.
hopefully start your own agency. So I definitely want to talk about your journey doing that, but let's rewind the clock a little bit because you started your career as an intern at Asos. So
Yeah.
at Sky Society, we share marketing jobs, marketing internships all the time. And the ones that get the most attention are always fashion and beauty, but those are also the most competitive. So, can you
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about how you were able to start your career within fashion and PR?
Yeah, definitely. So it actually, I think I first started that as an intern because there was a friend of a friend who knew someone or something, and I managed to get an interview for this internship. And I got it, and it was amazing because I was like fresh out of university, and all I wanted was to be in London, like running around, like Devil Wears Prada in my head. And I literally felt like that, and it was amazing. We were part of this huge PR team at the time. It was across women's wear and menswear. And kind of, I think that was almost 10 years ago now that I started there. And it was very much still that kind of traditional PR. Like every morning we'd go and pick up all the papers and the magazines, and everyone would get their highlighters, and we would see where we'd been
Oh
featured.
my
And
gosh, that
yeah,
sounds amazing.
it was really cool. And I think because I had obviously done like 3 years at university and I was just so ready to get into the industry. And it was just such an exciting time. And I was there for, I think, just over a year. And that was working mainly on PR, but we were kind of working across influencers as well, but not in the capacity that brands are doing now. It was still fairly new, I think, I feel at that time. And yeah, so we were focusing mainly on the PR side. And then I was there for, yeah, just over a year. And then I actually went traveling for a year, but then I went back to ASOS as soon as I got back.
Really? And were they fine hiring you again after you took a year off to travel?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect it to happen that way. But it just aligned that I think they had an opening. And obviously, I mean, this is something we might come on to later, but I think just such a key thing in this industry is like networking and really building those relationships with people, like whether they are an intern or a CEO. And I feel like in that year, I really had that as a priority. And I think that's what helped me to be able to go back there when I came back.
Okay, so where'd you go when you traveled for a year?
I did a lot. I went to New Zealand to begin with. And then I did like Southeast Asia and India. And then went back to Thailand. Yeah, it was a
Oh my
journey.
gosh. Would you recommend it to someone who's graduated recently from university or from college?
Yeah, I would, but do you know what I would say? And I'm really glad I did it this way. I think I would have struggled if I did it straight after university. I think
Mhm.
I'm kind of glad that I got that hunger for the industry and then went. Because
Okay.
then I came back and I was still so ready to go and I knew what to expect and I kind of already had my foot in the door.
hmm Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't think I've really heard of people doing it that way. So I do think that's pretty unique of like, okay, graduating, doing
Yeah.
something, and then
Yeah.
leaving, taking your year traveling, and then being able to come back to the industry.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think, I was really fortunate that I could come back and go back to ASOS. But yeah, so then I was on the menswear team, which was really exciting as well. And I was still doing sort of PR, but kind of broadening into that like influencer collaboration space with them at that time. And I think that's when I really realized that I loved that side of things, like pairing the right person with the brand and how are we going to market this? Who's the face of like that vibe?
Okay, okay. So I want for a quick second, I want to rewind and touch back on the uh networking that you mentioned or just like building
Yeah.
relationships that allow you to come back to ASOS. I want to touch on it now because I feel like when you are newer at a company, it seems really intimidating to network with other people, right?
Yeah.
Because you're so new, you're so young, you feel like you don't know anything.
Yeah.
So I feel like sometimes building relationships or networking can seem a little bit easier once you're more established in your career. So do you have any
Mm.
advice for girls who are a little bit newer in their career and how they can network or build relationships when they're just an intern?
Yeah, I think it's really about being a yes person without taking on too much and burning yourself out. But I think it really is having that like positive attitude to
hmm
to kind of everything you're asked to do and just being such a like go-getter. I think I see that in people now. I can really tell if people have that like drive and positivity. And I think as well it's that initiative. It's kind of like, if something goes wrong, let's come up with a solution. And I think that's what's really recognized. And then it's kind of easier to network with those people who are in higher roles, if you know what I mean.
Okay. Okay. So being a bit more proactive when it comes to
Yeah.
your role. Okay.
Yeah,
And that,
exactly that. And I think as well, what I did is I was super interested in learning how people had got to where they were. So,
Hmm.
I remember like when I first started there, I was really keen to understand how, well, even then looking up to the execs, I was like, oh my gosh, I just want to be you. And I feel like I was always asking how they got into it, or like the more senior people, and I think people do want to tell you their journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Just like being curious, like, oh my gosh, like
Yeah.
your job's amazing. How'd you get into this? How'd you get started in that? And people
Yeah.
love talking about themselves. They love it.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
like that's like
Yeah.
the best because you're not asking anything from them by just being curious about their
Yeah.
role, how they got started.
Yeah, 100%. I honestly think that is a key.
Okay. So you went back to ASOS, and then after, can you kind of tell me what you decided was the next career move for you now that you got this little taste of collaborations?
Yeah, so loved it. Absolutely loved it there. And then what actually happened is I was moving. So me and my boyfriend were moving to Manchester. So we were leaving London and moving to Manchester, basically because he was starting up a music agency. So I was really, really feeling mixed emotions about leaving London. But it was a huge blessing, like now looking back and where that took me on my career. So I kind of left ASOS in a really amazing place, and I'm sure we'll go into it later, but I ended up going back there this year. But yeah, so we moved to Manchester, and then I ended up getting a sort of outreach and PR similar role to Asos, but it was slightly more senior, like rather than an assistant. And I loved the PR piece there because I felt like I'd learned so much at ASOS. And then I was in this small company, this small team, and I felt like I could really make noise with everything I had learned.
Mhm.
Um, but I think again, it was just that piece again that I was loving the influencer side of it, and I was loving that collaborative side, and I was building that out with that brand. And I think it was really good because it was a smaller brand. I could kind of make it my own and really run with it.
hmm I feel like when I talk to guests that interview at smaller companies, the benefit is definitely that you
Yeah,
get you get to do more, right? You get to have more control over the things that you do, whereas there's definitely benefits that come with working for a bigger brand that has maybe more structure,
yeah.
more budget. When it is a smaller
Exactly.
brand and you are forced to do like most things, right? There's not a huge
Mhm.
team to like put off responsibilities to. You get to learn a lot, I imagine, as well when you're doing pretty
Yeah.
much most of the aspects of a influencer collaboration campaign.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think I was there about a year, and then I moved into sort of what was my like well a long time, probably my longest role in my career was for a company called In the Style. It's a UK based company, and I moved there and I kind of started there as an exec and climbed right up to senior collabs manager.
Can you talk to me? So we're kind of like touching on this collaborations theme throughout your
Yeah.
career, but can you tell me so you ended here as a collaborations manager. What does that role entail? And like, what does it look like to bring a collaboration to life?
Yeah. So, well, I'll take that company In the Style as an example. So with that one, I mean, it's an amazing company, and yeah, I had such a good journey there. And I think with them, they had such a unique model of kind of influencer first. So it was almost like we built collections around influencers rather than it being a brand first, if that makes sense. And
Okay.
it was really unique of its time. It was like one of the first companies to be doing it that way, and like a real pioneer in the industry. So when I was doing collaborations management there, it was very much like being the person between the influencer or celebrity and the brand. So it's kind of bringing that vision to life. So with them, it was influencer-led collection. So it was sitting down with them, with their team, with the management, with the design team, designing the collection, buying the collection, sampling it, organizing the shoot. What's the story? What's the brand messaging? How are we going to market this? All the way up to the sell point and events. And yeah, it's like the 360 of
Oh my
a
gosh.
launch. Yeah.
Okay, so you're doing like you're touching pretty much everything from like inception to launch.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
Okay, but it's a little bit different from like a traditional influencer marketing role where maybe you're paying an influencer to do something. Here in collaborations, within a collaborations role, the collaboration is more robust, or kind of how would you explain the difference between like just doing influencer marketing versus doing
Yeah.
collaborations?
So I would say, like you said, like influencer marketing is a lot more kind of, I guess, surface level, like because, then they're invested in the brand, but as much as they are to be within a paid campaign or, talking about a certain launch. Whereas I would say collaborations, it's like, I guess it's on a deeper level. It's more commitment from both the brand and the influencer or celebrity to kind of go on this journey to actually launch something that is really true to them with the brand. So
Mhm.
whether that's like, a collection launch, or even that, we've done it before where it's more like event focused and event led. So it could be like a community collaboration where you have someone who's like the face of community and they're going to host events and talk to. There's different ways of doing it essentially. But
Okay.
yeah, I would say, yeah, in kind of a nutshell, the collaboration piece is just a more in-depth version of aligning the right person and people to a brand and the ethos.
And then for your role as a collaborations manager, are you also in charge of finding these people or brands to collaborate with?
Yes, yeah. So that's a big piece of that is pitching, and pitching those people that you think are maybe going to be like the next big thing, or and you see them growing and you see them and you just see something in them and you think, we need to get them now. or it could be pitching someone who's already at that kind of A-list and being like, do you know what? They are perfect for our brand values and we need to do this. So a big part of it is, yeah, that pitching piece.
Okay. Is there anyone that like that you worked with at this time at InStyle that was one of your favorite collaborations or like biggest celebrity that you got to work with, or that was kind of like a pinch me moment?
Oh, honestly, it's so hard to say because I loved them all so much. If I'm completely honest, I actually preferred working across the kind of influencer-led collabs as opposed to the celeb collabs. I think it's just because I prefer being so hands-on, and I felt like with the influencer side of things, because probably their schedules, it's easier to actually get them into the office. They're sat down, they're designing with you, they're feeling the clothes, and like
Uh,
you're on the journey and you see them, they're so invested, and I love that. And
oh.
I think obviously the celebrity side is as well, but it's just harder because it's kind of more corporate. They've got their people and it's a bit more harder to kind of find that direction. But yeah, I don't know on a pinch me moment. It's hard to say. I guess with the celebrities we were working with at the time as well, it was very much like reality UK stars. So it's
Mm.
like that world. So it was almost
Okay.
like it was almost like my mum was literally like, "What? You're working with no, and
Is
it
it like
just felt
Love Island stars
yeah,
or
yeah, yeah. All the
oh
Love
my
Islanders.
gosh.
Yeah. And like yeah, a lot of presenters and people like that that really, really worked for us.
Okay, that's so fun.
Mhm.
Okay.
I,
I can
I think
definitely
it's
imagine the difference between like a celebrity and an influencer coming in, but still
yeah,
sounds so fun on both fronts.
yeah. And I think I just learned so much there, like from going from obviously an exec to a senior manager. It was such a journey. And yeah, super thankful for that journey.
Okay, so that journey wrapped up after about like 3 years of you being there, and then you moved
Yeah.
over to Nasty Gal. Can you tell me a little bit about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, yeah. So I guess again, this is another one of those like networking pieces. And I honestly think that is like my biggest piece of advice is like network with everyone at every opportunity because you just don't know where they're going to end up and and you don't know where you're going to end up. And I think it's all in this industry, especially, fashion is difficult. And I think as if you've got people in your corner who are going to open those doors for you, and if you can do the same for others, it's just that's just the magic in it. And I think anyway, so yeah, with Nasty Gal, it actually was so the head of brand, she used to work at In Style, and I worked with her quite closely. And she basically ended up going there, and she kind of this role came up, and she knew that I had loved Nasty Gal for years. So it basically transpired that I ended up being able to kind of move across there and work with her. Obviously, still had to go through a process, but it helped a lot knowing that she kind of had my back.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went across and was doing collaborations there. But for this point, obviously the big move was that it was across US as well, which was amazing because
Oh my gosh.
that was like my next step that I really wanted to get to. I loved obviously the UK collaboration side, but I really wanted to kind of take that next step and take on another sector. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I started there and I think I was there maybe a year and a half, but honestly, it felt like about 5 years in the best way possible. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
I had to, so hearing this, so we're kind of like starting to see you within your career kind of niche down into this collaborations
Mhm.
position, which honestly, I'm trying to think back if I've even had on a guest on the podcast that had this collaborations title. I've interviewed influencer and partnerships, so I don't think I've
Yeah.
have have had anybody that's been in this collaborations niche, which is why I find it so interesting. So
Mhm.
at this point, you've done so many different collaborations. You're now leading them in the US. What have
Yeah.
you learned that makes a collaboration really successful aside from, maybe the fame or the audience that the influencer or
Mhm.
celebrity brings? Aside from that, what do you feel like really makes a collaboration successful?
I honestly think it's that kind of it's like that organic feeling that it fits. I think as well, I find it really important to build that relationship and try and have some sort of organic pairing between influencer or celeb and brand before you even go down that road. because you need to test if their audience and your audience are going to resonate. Like, even if they have a huge following and like an amazing engagement rate, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work, because if it doesn't align and you don't believe in it, then it's not going to sell.
So how would you
So
do that?
I guess the way I've done that in the past, especially with like high sort of top tier influencers, like macro influencers, is kind of gifting them first, like gifting them, making sure they actually like the product. Like, is this aligning? And maybe booking them in for some paid content, or just seeing whether that's actually going to resonate between them. But I think it's kind of building that organic relationship. Do they actually love the brand? And then maybe going down a paid route of let's trial and test it, and then into that like collaboration space.
Hmm.
Because I think it's just doesn't work if you're getting a face of without any sort of alignment, and you're just going off, followers and engagement, or the fact that they're the person of the moment.
Yeah, I love that. So like, yeah, sending them, gifting them something, sending them, having them
Mm,
do a paid ad first to see how like that paid collaboration like, or
yeah,
paid one-off ad works with their audience. And then
yeah.
I'm also curious. So we live in an era where there are so many influencers that any brand could possibly work with. Like the number of fashion influencers is infinite. So whether it be for Nasty Gal or any other brand that you work for, even now with what you do at Caddy Collabs,
Mhm.
what are some of the either like metrics or things that you look for in an influencer that kind of gets them not just on your radar, but also like starting to seriously consider them for a potential collaboration?
Mhm. I think there's quite a few different factors, I guess. I think I really like looking for now, especially like you said, there's so many influencers, it's such a huge pool of talent. I think people are really wanting to look for that like relatable, personable person now, that are kind of jumping on stories and talking to you and actually being honest. I think that's like one of the things that is really key to look for, because then they're going to be able to talk to your audience and their audience better and be able
Mm,
to tell the story. And then I think obviously another one is just watching that growth rate. Like, how are they moving? Like, are they, even if they're small, but you can just see, those views are really on the up, their engagement rate is on the up, they're consistent. I think it's the consistency as well, because then you kind of know that they're committed.
mm,
And I think it's seeing that. And then obviously just like the other things that we're always looking for, like, their audience breakdown, where is their most populated like audience across the world? What city is that? Like, just to kind of resonate it with the brand or whoever you're working for. But yeah, I would kind of say it's that like relatability and the consistency.
okay. That's really interesting to hear because yeah, there are so like there's just so many influencers now at this point. And it's not to say that influencer marketing doesn't work. It's just that there's so many that again, like as a brand that you could potentially pick from to work with. And so I like what you're saying there about the relatability of someone that seems like very genuine and authentic. So when they do talk about a brand or promote a brand, that also feels genuine and
Oh,
authentic as well.
yeah, exactly.
Okay. So you were at Nasty Gal for, I think, like you mentioned, like a year or two, and then you
Yeah.
went back over to Asos, or kind of what kind of happened next?
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, Nautical was incredible. Absolutely loved it. There was a point when I was I was between LA and London like every month. And
No
it
way.
was,
You were flying back and forth that much?
yeah, yeah,
Oh
because
my
I
gosh.
was
How long is that flight?
long, because it's not direct. It was like, oh, yeah, I can't even think now. It's like a blur.
That is
Oh, yeah,
crazy.
no,
Oh
I know.
my
So I felt
goodness.
like the jet lag was so real for about a year. Um, but it
Your
was
jet
amazing.
lag. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But it was amazing. And because I was sort of mad, because I was obviously across the UK and the US, it was such a learning curve, because I had my team in the UK, team in the US, and sort of going between the two. But it was like incredible, like we did so many amazing campaigns. We did like a huge New York pop-up shop. We did Coachella, like really, really exciting time, and learned so much. But I think before Nasty Girl, when I was in the style, I was obviously there a long time, and I think I always thought about doing something myself, and it was kind of always in the back of my mind, but I just didn't know how to go about that, when would be the right time. I don't think you ever feel ready, but
Hmm.
I think, yeah, I was kind of had that in my head anyway. And obviously, Nasty Girl was such a whirlwind. And then basically, an opportunity sort of came up at Asos for this sort of freelance opportunity. And I just thought, "Oh, maybe this is right to just, is this a sign? Like, should I give this a go? Like, I've always thought about it. And it just kind of felt fitting that I started my career there. And it was like kind of this stepping stone into this kind of freelance world. So I kind of took the leap and went to ASOS as a like talent consultant for a few months, which was at the beginning of this year.
What does that mean? What is a talent consultant?
So basically there's a big talent team there now. So it's literally influencer casting for campaigns is the main thing. Obviously, that's a huge piece for ASOS. Like they, they've done it amazingly since they launched ASOS Insiders. And yeah, so there's so many brands there, obviously, because there's all the other brands. So there's like Nike, Adidas, there's so many and so many different niches. So it's essentially talent casting for events, campaigns, collection launches, because there's so many simultaneous campaigns all at once.
Oh my gosh. That also like what a fun area that you found yourself in your career within like fashion and influencer and celebrity and talent. Like that is so cool. That sounds
Yeah.
like just so much fun.
Yeah, no, it was, and it's amazing. And the team there, and also it was just so amazing going back because obviously I was there like 9 years ago, and people who I worked with who were assistants at the time and now directors, senior management, and it was just crazy that like walking through that door after so many years. And I think it was such a good insight for me into realizing that I could start something myself. If I can take the step and do a freelance like talent consulting role, then what's stopping me doing something properly on my own? So it was a very good stepping stone that kind of naturally happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds, yeah, and even, yeah, starting your career there to then now, like, not ending, but just like closing the
Yeah.
9 to 5 chapter of
Yeah.
your life,
Yeah.
is very full circle moment. So
Yeah.
you accept this freelance position, and then is this kind of what then inspired you to be like, okay, now I'm gonna actually go and start my own agency? Was that the next step for you?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I've kind of always had that in the back of my head. And I think what I did, because also it allowed me the space to be able to explore those options, because obviously I was freelance and I was like, oh, right,
Mhm.
okay, I'm working for myself now. So I kind of started putting sort of feelers out there. And I think just because of all the years I've done in the industry and how different my roles have kind of been, and how I've gone through PR, and how obviously networky press is anyway as a team or like industry, that I just sort of started putting feelers out to my contacts, and all these things just started happening like very quickly. And I feel super grateful, but I kind of also know that I'm like, oh, okay, all these years of grafting, and it's actually coming out now, and it's amazing because all these links. Yeah, so basically I was at ASOS and I was starting to explore other opportunities in the freelance world, and it just started happening very quickly.
That is amazing. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I want to know, so kind of are starting to explore this. You mentioned you're sending out feelers to previous contacts.
Mhm.
What did those feelers look like? Like what did you say in those like emails or texts or whatever they were?
Yeah, so I guess I was just letting people know that I am now freelance, and obviously they know what I specialize in, but just kind of letting them know, worked across PR, influence marketing, collaborations, creative marketing, brand strategy. And I was just
Hmm.
kind of outlining what I'm going to be focusing on, and if there's any space or they know anyone, or just kind of bear me in mind. And
Hmm.
it just kind of started to naturally happen, I guess, as well, because there's so many influencers that I've worked with over the years, and I was sort of casting them for ASOS opportunities, and I was back in touch with their management who I've probably worked with for years, and I was kind of explaining to them what I was doing. And like the thing is, the industry is smaller than you think. Like
Hmm.
even when I was working in the US, like you quickly start to get to know who's where and who knows who. So I think you just kind of start to build out your database and you really start to lean on that and pull strings within that. And like I said before, like I think if you have someone else's back, they'll have yours later down the line.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Sorry, that was a long-winded answer to that.
no, that was no, it's super inspiring to hear that. And I always love hearing stories about, you know, guest journeys starting something new like this because like I mentioned, I do think that a lot of girls do want to do this like eventually or even maybe right now they want to do it but they like don't really know how to get started or like if they can or if that's even a possibility. And so I think hearing your journey is really inspiring and that I also think sometimes all the pieces just kind of line up and then it's also up to you to take the initiative and be like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go tell them I actually am gonna be doing freelancing because
Yeah.
if you didn't do that, you could have this opportunity never could have happened, right? You could have just stayed in
Yeah.
the normal like corporate world, which is fine and everything, but without having like taking that freelance role, taking a chance on yourself, pitching yourself, you never would have gotten these other opportunities that came after.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so now, so you are kind of sending out these feelers, and then now
Yeah.
you're, like you mentioned, you're getting this positive response
Yeah.
from these people and these brands. Is it
Mhm.
still you right now? Is your plan to hire or kind of where do you see Caddy Collabs going?
So right now, obviously, it's only a few months in, but I'm super busy, which is great. And
Yes.
it seems to be that kind of every week at the minute, there's these new opportunities. It's just so amazing. They're all just kind of transpiring right now. I feel like I'm in this growth, like intense growth period very early on, which is amazing. But yeah, I think, well, the next step is that I am looking to hire quite soon. Um,
Exciting.
yeah, so that's kind of the next step. And then I guess the I want to just like kind of take it day by day and I don't want to put too much pressure on anything because we are really like, right at the beginning and I just
Mhm.
want to be, doing all these projects the best possibly can. But I think if I was to look at next steps for next year, I think it would be because I think the one not missing piece, but I think the one piece that I would like to home in on, like I did in my career previously, is becoming more of a global agency. So right now, who we're working with is mainly UK clients. Um,
Mhm.
Starting to open the doors by doing like shoots for those clients in the US, possible like pop-ups and events to kind of get them across there. But I want to make sure that the agency is known to be global. I think that'll be the next step.
Mhm. Okay. Well, you had that experience now from Nasty Gal of
Yeah. Yeah.
getting that experience in the US. So I guess it just comes down to like once you start growing, I feel like that will naturally just start to happen.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And I think I just need to run with it as I have with everything else.
Yeah. So the your client, so unlike maybe I'm thinking of a freelancer that maybe newer in her career who's maybe getting like smaller businesses to be clients, are your
Mhm.
client like your quote unquote clients, are they influencers that are coming to you? Is it brands that are coming to you looking for influencers? Is it a mix of both?
It is such a mix. And I
Okay.
think that's what I love is because every client I'm working on right now is so different and what I'm doing for them is so different. Like,
Hmm.
so for example, I'm working with like an amazing jewelry company, and for her, I am just basically creating the PR strategy.
Mm.
And her brand is it's called July Child. I'll do a plug for her because it's amazing. And it's like a really, really unique jewelry brand. And basically for her, yeah, I'm doing PR strategy and she's looking to expand into the US. So I'm kind of helping her on that. Then I'm working with like another big UK, I don't know if you've heard of it, it's called River Island. It's like a big women's and menswear actually brand here. And for them, it's more like that talent casting piece. So that influencer strat, who should we get in for what campaign,
Mm.
and kind of from the beginning. And I think it will probably develop into that piece of like maybe a face of or a more collaborative approach. Um,
Hmm.
and then I'm working as well, like another big thing, I guess, which is great because I feel like I can pull all my skills together, is I'm working quite closely with a couple of influencers that are actually launching their own brands.
Oh, how
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah, because I feel like obviously I've always worked brand side, but this is great because I can actually be that middle person between the influencer and their brand. So I'm
Yeah.
kind of helping them with like the brand consultancy and also then that growing into like a marketing role within their brand, if that makes sense.
Yes. Oh my gosh. You're touching like so many different
Yeah.
areas.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what's so great is this kind of creative marketing piece kind of does feed into all of those like quite
hmm
naturally. Um,
hmm
so yeah, it's a real mix at the minute. It's a mix of those brands literally right from the beginning and already established brands. And yeah, I guess my key focuses that my key areas, I guess, really are the kind of influencer strategy, PR strategy, and that collaborations piece.
hmm So kind of everything from your career that you've learned all coming together in your own
Yeah.
agency.
Yeah, yeah, which is just amazing right now because I have to try and reality check myself that I'm where I've wanted to be for a long time.
Yes, yes. Congratulations on all
Thank
that
you.
success. That is very inspiring to hear. And now looking back, now that we've kind of gone through all the different steps in your career, what advice would you give to somebody who's really interested in working in fashion or really interested in working in collaborations? Is there anything that you think they should be like working on or practicing or doing to help them build a career in this space?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always having like your ear to the ground. Is that the saying? I think that's the saying.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think, and just kind of being on the constant watch for like who's growing really quickly, who's going to be the next Alex Earl or whatever, like who, like really kind of keeping that eye out of everyone and kind of being a step ahead of the game. And then I think another side is just having that initiative, like honestly having that approach to kind of problem solving. And especially in this industry, things go wrong so much and things fall through and there's so many things that can go wrong all the time, but it's kind of finding those solutions and rather than panicking and having that initiative to be like, right, let's do this instead. I think that goes such a long way and it's so remembered. And
hmm
I honestly think even in like recent years when I've been hiring, I don't even necessarily go off of the experience. I really do go off of that kind of proactive approach and that initiative around things. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Amazing. Well, Caddy, thank you so much for coming on Marketing Girly. Your story has been so incredible to hear, and I'm so excited to see what you're going to do next with Caddy Collabs.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.